So, are we heading to World War III, Third World War, thermonuclear extinction? The advocates, let's put it like this: the team that claims to be supporting Ukraine is sure leading us that way. And I say claim that they are supporting Ukraine because in reality they are not. They are digging the grave of Ukraine, for Ukraine. The policy along the lines which Ukraine made its way since 2014 has been dictated by the West and has put Ukraine on the path of extinction. Even if we don't have World War III, a mutual assured destruction, Ukraine will be no more. I see this because Ukraine was already a divided country before 2014, way before. The majority of the people there expressed at the polls, at the voting booth, were pro-Russian in such a way that the only time that a pro-Western candidate won, he failed miserably, and then a candidate which is more friendly to Russia won. You all know who it was. He was deposed in the coup of 2014, President Yanukovych. And since then, Ukraine has been on the path to war. War against who? War against Russia. This could never end well. And so, when we see it in a military standpoint, the arguments we still see the West using, the so-called think tanks. Well, they're not so-called, they are actually think tanks. Machines for propaganda. They keep, if you listen to those, if you have some spare time in your life, which by the way I don't, but I try to do it while doing other useful things, listen to these guys, you see that they are leading us to destruction with a smile on their faces. And of course, in the process, pointing the finger at Russia in every way possible. And sometimes even reflecting in Russia, projecting in Russia the things that they represent. For example, democracy. When they keep claiming that Vladimir Putin is a dictator and Russia is a dictatorship, and then they were the ones, the Western powers, who helped strip Ukraine of democracy. Ukraine was a democracy. It was not perfect. But since the separation from the Soviet Union, Ukraine was a functioning democracy. We all know that corruption was rampant. I mean, all the statistics indicate that. A lot of problems. But nevertheless, was a much more healthy democracy than it is now. Because after the coup, no longer communists starting to be persecuted, and then Russian speakers, and then Russian language, and now it's beyond all limits. Of course they have the excuse of the war, but even according to their constitution, Zelensky is no longer a legitimate leader. So much for that democracy. But they keep saying this. Ukraine is a healthy democracy and it's fighting for liberty, freedom, values, while they power boost, they have this extreme far-right groups in Ukraine on steroids. Running amok. And they keep using the arguments that and very dangerous convictions they have. For example, a lot of these bloggers and YouTubers with huge numbers, by the way. When I compare the numbers of the more neutral but accused of being pro-Russian bloggers, they always have much less numbers, and it's not to the, I mean, it's because they have less people supporting it. I really don't fall for that. I really think it's otherwise. It's just that the others have powerful machines. I see the same in the micro level of the Portuguese reality, when we see that a new political force is projected and you see their sponsors, which are like the local oligarchs with some agenda, immediately their YouTube propaganda channels have enormous boosts. And I don't think this is, you can accuse me of being making too much of a speculation here, but I really don't think, because I see the arguments that these guys use, and they are not coherent. They are based on many prejudice against Russia. They make statements based on convictions instead of facts. It happens like this. For example, Russia is a dictatorship, no civil liberties in Russia, and that's it. That's how do you say it? It's like a dogma for them, right? And at the same time it works as a dog whistle for the propaganda. Whenever you say Vladimir Putin, you create this image of a bad person, Russian society, animals, people with no heart. And this is dangerous. Because these are the same people that cheer for Israel. And when you hear a propagandist, I will make one of these days, soon as I can, I'm gonna make a video, in a few days maybe, I'm gonna make a video where I will select one of the guys that are most, at least is considered to be one of the most proeminent YouTubers that cheerleader for Ukraine. He's not cheerleading for Ukraine, I have to make this clear. These guys are sinking Ukraine. They don't care about Ukrainian people. If they would find a way to stop this madness. These are the same people that are responsible for the escalation in every way. And I dare to say they are responsible, the people they cheer for are responsible for the Russian invasion. And yeah, I said it. I mean, I go round and round in my head, and I think about this when you go and see the details of the facts till the very day that Russia crossed the border. I do remember, for example, as I was following Russell Bonner Bentley, Texas, closely, and I searched videos of him. He was still on YouTube. Not for long, but he was still there. And a few days before Russian crossing the border, they were increasing artillery shelling, but big time. And he was in Petrovsky district, like filming, and you could hear the blasts incoming from the Ukrainian side. And Ukraine was ready to overrun Donetsk and Lugansk republics. They had the apparatus, they had the weapons, they had the training, they had the army in place. Much numerous army than the. I mean, they were the ones ready for war when this started. And if Russia hadn't acted the way it did, maybe it could have gone really bad for people in Donetsk and Lugansk. So yeah, but now the giant media and all their minions on YouTube and every other channels, they keep repeating this propaganda that Russia, if it's not stopped, will only end in Lisbon. I keep hearing these sentences. It's absurd, and at the same time, it's people. They treat their own followers like morons, because when they say this, the next second they say that Russian is a third, fourth-rate army, very disappointing army, completely incompetent. Europe alone could stand to them because it has 400 million people and Russia is only 140. And people don't even think when they hear this propaganda. They're like having their dose of, they're biased, they're having their dose of whatever to feel good about themselves. I feel right because I am right. He's saying what I think is right. But it doesn't match reality. It doesn't match reality. You have to think about this. It's either one of two. They are either very incompetent, and so therefore not a very big menace, not a very big threat, or they are the biggest threat, and if you let them, they will overrun entire Europe and end up in Lisbon. Which one is it? You have to decide. At the same time, they keep saying Putin is Russian, and Russia has to be defeated. And because Russia didn't knock out Ukraine in the first few days, therefore we must defeat it. It can be defeated, so let's do it. Sentences like this are said. And they don't really believe that Russia would be capable of using nuclear weapons, because they're always using this logic that it wouldn't have anything to gain from it. And then in the next sentence they say, oh, but Russia is Putin, and if Putin interprets the Russian doctrine for the use of nuclear weapons, if he feels threatened, he might use them. So again, what is it? So it's very contradictory. I gotta really show you this interview with this dude, and this is just in this one interview, the guy concentrated all the narrative, all the story in one book, in one interview. In this case, of all the fallacy, all the propaganda, all the Western propaganda. In this case. And the matter of fact is that if Russia wanted to take Ukraine or take Europe, it would have done it in 2014-16. Remember, there were 2 peace accords there. And Ukraine tried. First time it got beaten, and it tried a second time and it got beaten. And they call and the government of Russia accepted these both peace offers, only to be fooled. It could have overrun Ukraine long ago. I mean, they knew what was going on there. They knew the plot that was developing there, the intervention from the European Union and the United States in the Ukrainian internal affairs, the growing anti-Russian propaganda. They knew all this. It doesn't seem to be the kind of behavior of a terrible dictatorship country out of hell. It doesn't add up with the propaganda. And you, again, One other good joke that I hear from these guys that supposed to be the best propagandists from the West. I will make this video in a few days. I do promise this, and because I don't recall the name of the guy, I just memorized his face. He's an American, and he gives his interview with the background with the Ukrainian flag on his room. Da-da-da. And then he says, who will, when he talks about Trump, because he says that Trump is a threat, because he will take the support from Ukraine and da-da-da, you know this. I don't know if Trump is going to do this or not. Look, I'm not a fan of Trump. But if that's the policy he wants to follow, and if he is good for his word, sure, why not Trump? I mean, if he can save the world from World War III, basically, let it be Trump. Let it be the Orange Man. Like I said, really not fond of him. I mean, he represents a lot of the things that I do hate in society, especially this capitalist liberal society. But if his external policy, foreign policy consists of that, let him win. And so the guy was talking about Trump, and he was criticizing Trump. Listen to this is the funny part. He was saying, how can people pay attention to this obese ridicule with the stupid hair and the stupid skin that can hardly put a sentence together? And I was thinking to myself, suddenly the image he created, apart from the colors of the skin or the type of hair, the image that came to my mind when I was listening to his words was Joe Biden, not Donald Trump. The guy that couldn't put a sentence together, and people are gonna trust him? These crazy people. The majority know that Putin da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, this was fun to watch. Anyway, what is not fun is the ongoing developments. I mean, it's like this cartel of mobsters got together to steal Russia. You heard about this G7 meeting, right? And you heard about this fake peace summit. I've talked about that as well. I mean, it's been on many news outlets, but you have a lot of separate news related to it. Quite funny, for example, the president of Colombia was like, didn't show up because he thought that it was not serious. It was not a serious peace meeting. And then he recommended that serious peace meeting takes place, inviting Putin, of course. It's ridicule. It's like children playing. It's our little club, and we're gonna decide how the world is done, but we exclude that guy that we don't like. We don't like to play with him. It's like this, you remember this dynamic in groups of children? You don't belong to our little club, and we're gonna smear you and conspire against you. It's really, it's rotten. Rotten to the core. How can people support this? And I know a lot of people, you're cheerleading for Russia, Putin puppet, all this Putin shield, all this shit. Look, I do respect the president of the Russian Federation. I mean, he has done an enormous job. Tell me the president, the last president of the United States that has done such an equivalent job. Tell me. Russia from the 90s. Russia before Putin, Russia post and during Putin era. Compare it. You have your answer there. What you see in America, a slow decay from decades. Hear one speech, hear the other speech. Who is the competent one? Who reveals knowledge? Who reveals who shows himself to be the wisest. Who would you vote for? Be honest. Between Biden and Vladimir Putin. Come on. Come on. But the propaganda has been so strong, so many dog whistles, that once they do the whistle, do you know what happens in Pavlov's dogs, right? They start drooling, which is the equivalent of the people, Vladimir Putin. They feel this rage, automatic, without irrational. I really don't like the way things are going. I really don't like the way propaganda is affecting people's mind. What I did find, for example, very refreshing when I was in Russia, is that I saw common sense. It really reminded me Portugal, like in the 80s and 90s. It was a prosperous Portugal, nevertheless. Well, it was a fake prosperity, but still, it was an illusion of prosperity. But things were not so dominated by this media. And there was more common sense among people. This is what I saw in Russia. Against all this Western claims that there you cannot speak, you cannot do, you cannot move, you cannot do anything. I mean, I wouldn't be in anyone's skin if they do try to conspire or to organize and to subvert. I mean, look at what they are up against. They cannot run it smoothly or too softly. But you are free in Russia, and you have a good quality of life there. I know, these are not popular claims, but I cannot lie. And if I had bad experiences there, I would tell them. It was my second time in Russia, by the way. And it's not Russia who is leading us to World War III. Russia is indeed defending itself. And the Western propagandists try to, the way they debunk this sentence, for example, this idea that Russia is defending itself, is that you're a bunch of crazies. They do not point any fact. While there are many facts that can corroborate these sentences. And NATO expansion it's a real thing. It's not a fake thing. The meddling in internal affairs of other countries by the United States and the European Union, the overthrowing of governments, creating the chaos in foreign countries, they are facts. They are not a joke. So you let me know what you think. And I do hope I see you on the next one.